A man who leaves calmly commands silent respect. He values himself, sets boundaries, and shows strength without anger. His composure teaches lessons words cannot. Women notice not the departure, but the dignity behind it. Calm exits leave lasting impressions, revealing power, self-worth, and a quiet magnetism that cannot be ignored. Calmness over drama is a trait that speaks volumes without uttering a single word. It's not about being cold or indifferent. It's about mastering yourself in a world that constantly demands reactions, attention, and emotional validation. A man who walks away calmly is a man who understands his own worth. He knows that chaos, arguments, and desperate attempts to hold on to something that no longer serves him only diminish his power. There is a quiet strength in restraint, a magnetism in the ability to remain composed when emotions run high. Women notice this, not because it is loud or flashy, but because it is rare and genuine. When a man chooses calm over drama, he is making a statement about himself. He refuses to be dragged into conflicts that offer no growth, no respect, and no dignity. He knows that true respect is earned through consistency, through patience, and through the way he carries himself when the world tests him. Drama is temporary. It leaves scars and regrets. Calmness, however, creates impressions that linger. It tells a woman subtly yet powerfully that he is in control, not of her, but of himself. He is someone who does not need to prove his value through arguments or desperation. He is someone who stands firm in his self-respect and integrity, no matter the circumstances. In relationships, this calmness becomes magnetic. It is not about arrogance or detachment. It is about clarity. A man who can step back, observe, and choose his response wisely demonstrates emotional intelligence. He demonstrates that he values peace over conflict, dignity over drama, and presence over attention-seeking. Women are instinctively drawn to this because it signals maturity and stability. It is a rare quality in a world where overreactions are celebrated, where shouting is mistaken for passion, and where chaos is often confused with commitment. Calmness over drama is a silent power that inspires curiosity, admiration, and respect. Moreover, calmness teaches lessons that words cannot. When a man leaves a situation without creating a spectacle, he communicates volumes. He communicates that he is not dependent on approval or validation. He communicates that he is self-sufficient, confident, and secure. Drama may catch the eye temporarily, but calmness captures the heart and mind permanently. It is a reminder that true strength is not measured by how loudly you defend yourself, but by how peacefully you navigate life's challenges. Women who witness this calmness are not just observing behavior. They are recognizing character, depth, and the essence of a man who understands the power of his own presence. Calmness over drama is more than a choice. It is a reflection of inner mastery, self-awareness, and unwavering self-respect. It is a quality that cannot be forced, faked, or taught easily. It is earned through patience, introspection, and a commitment to living authentically. And when it is practiced, it leaves a mark far deeper than words, louder than arguments, and more memorable than any dramatic display ever could. Self-worth in action is one of the most powerful forms of communication a man can possess. It is not about boasting, proving, or seeking approval. It is about living in alignment with one's own values, principles, and standards. A man who demonstrates self-worth does not bend, compromise, or diminish himself to appease someone else. He knows his value and he acts accordingly. This awareness is magnetic, invisible yet undeniable, and women notice it instinctively. They do not need grand gestures or constant words to recognize it. They feel it in the way a man carries himself, the decisions he makes, and the way he treats himself and others. Self-worth in action is evident in choices that honor the self. It is choosing to leave situations, relationships, or dynamics that no longer serve growth or respect. It is the ability to walk away calmly, without arguments, without desperation, without drama. It is understanding that staying for validation, attention, or fleeting emotions only cheapens one's own dignity. A man with self-worth does not react impulsively to rejection or disappointment. Instead, he evaluates, he understands, and he moves in ways that reflect his standards. This is not selfishness. It is a recognition that personal integrity and inner peace are priceless. When self-worth is enacted through behavior, it transforms relationships. Women feel it not as a lecture or a lesson, but as a deep, silent confidence that resonates on an emotional level. A man who respects himself creates an unspoken boundary for how he expects to be treated. He communicates that his time, his emotions, and his energy are valuable and that they are not to be wasted on games, manipulation, or disrespect. This clarity is rare, and it inspires curiosity, admiration, and even desire. Not because of ego, but because authenticity and self-respect are inherently attractive. Self-worth in action also manifests in resilience. A man who knows his value does not crumble under pressure, does not chase approval, and does not compromise his principles for temporary comfort. He understands that life will challenge him, that people may misunderstand him, and that circumstances will test him. But he navigates all of this with an unwavering sense of self. Women notice this strength because it is not performative. It is quiet, consistent, and unwavering. It is a demonstration that a man's confidence comes from within, not from validation outside. Self-worth is contagious. When a man acts with self-respect, he inspires those around him to recognize their own value. He sets a standard for behavior, communication, and interaction that cannot be ignored. Women who encounter such a man often reflect on their own boundaries, their own desires, and the type of energy they attract in life. His actions speak louder than words ever could, and his calm, confident demeanor leaves an imprint that lingers long after interactions end. In the end, self-worth in action is about living with integrity, clarity, and dignity. It is the conscious choice to honor oneself, even when the world pressures one to conform, to compromise, or to beg for acceptance. It is a reminder that true power is not in controlling others, but in controlling oneself. And when a man embodies this, women cannot help but notice, respect, and feel drawn to the authenticity and strength that only self-worth can manifest. The power of silence is one of the most profound demonstrations of strength a man can show. It is not the absence of communication out of fear or avoidance. It is the presence of composure, control, and wisdom. A man who understands the power of silence knows that words can often dilute value, that arguments rarely prove worth, and that explanations are not always necessary. There is a unique magnetism in someone who does not feel compelled to fill every space with sound, who can simply exist without needing to justify, defend, or validate himself to anyone. Women sense this power instinctively. They feel it in the calm, measured presence of a man who chooses silence over reaction. Silence is a language of its own, one that communicates clarity, confidence, and self-respect. When a man leaves a situation quietly, without anger, begging, or dramatics, he demonstrates that he is in control of his emotions. He shows that he values his peace above temporary satisfaction or fleeting arguments. Women notice this, not because it is flashy or demanding, but because it is rare. In a world obsessed with noise, confrontation, and constant validation, silence stands out as a sign of maturity and strength. It signals that a man is grounded, centered, and unwavering in his understanding of himself. The power of silence also lies in its ability to make women reflect. When a man does not react to provocation or cling to outcomes, it creates a space for introspection. It forces observation rather than confrontation, reflection rather than distraction. In that quiet, a woman begins to see the depth of his character, the self-discipline, the inner strength, the self-worth that refuses to be compromised. She begins to recognize that this man is not moved by every challenge, insult, or demand. And in that recognition grows a quiet admiration that words alone could never achieve. Silence is also a tool for setting boundaries without confrontation. It teaches more than yelling ever could. It demonstrates more than begging ever would. By not engaging in needless arguments, a man shows that he will not be manipulated, that his time, energy, and emotions are valuable. It is a lesson in dignity, a statement that respect is not requested. It is understood through actions, calmness, and presence. Women notice this consistency and the subtle confidence it conveys, and it creates a lasting impression that outshines any dramatic display of emotion. The power of silence is empowering for the man himself. It allows him to conserve energy, maintain clarity, and act intentionally rather than react impulsively. He does not get trapped in cycles of validation or approval. Instead, he moves with purpose, grounded in self-respect and awareness. Women recognize this intentionality, sensing the difference between a man who is reactive and one who is reflective. The latter inspires respect, intrigue, and admiration in ways that drama and noise never could. Silence is not emptiness. It is strength, presence, and mastery. It is a quiet force that communicates dignity, teaches lessons without words, and leaves a lasting impact. A man who walks away silently, who chooses peace over chaos, demonstrates the kind of character that women cannot help but notice, respect, and remember. It is in the stillness that true power speaks the loudest. Emotional intelligence is the quiet strength that defines a man's true character. It is not measured by wealth, status, or the ability to dominate conversations. It is measured by awareness, self-control, and the ability to navigate complex emotions with clarity and grace. A man with emotional intelligence understands that every interaction carries energy, every word carries weight, and every reaction can either build respect or erode it. Women notice this instinctively, even when it is subtle. It is reflected in the way he listens, the way he responds, and the way he handles moments that test patience, loyalty, and integrity. A man with emotional intelligence does not let anger, frustration, or insecurity dictate his actions. He understands that reactions born from impulse rarely lead to resolution, and that calm reflection is far more powerful than loud confrontation. When he walks away from situations that threaten his peace, he does so not out of fear, but out of awareness. He knows that preserving his dignity and self-respect is more important than winning a temporary argument or proving a point. Women sense this restraint, this intentionality, and they respect it because it reflects maturity and depth, qualities that cannot be fabricated or forced. Emotional intelligence also allows a man to see beyond the surface. He can recognize motivations, intentions, and patterns in behavior without judgment or rash decisions. He understands that others may act out of insecurity, fear, or miscommunication, and he does not take every action personally. Instead, he responds with balance, choosing when to engage, when to remain silent, and when to walk away. This discernment is magnetic. Women are drawn to men who can navigate relationships thoughtfully, who act with integrity, and who choose their words and actions deliberately rather than reactively. A man with emotional intelligence sets boundaries naturally. He knows his limits and does not allow others to compromise his values or self-respect. He demonstrates through action, not through threats or ultimatums, that his peace and dignity are non-negotiable. Women notice this clarity because it provides a sense of stability and trust. Emotional intelligence is not about being passive. It is about being conscious of one's emotional energy and using it to create a life that honors self-worth and respect. Emotional intelligence transforms challenges into lessons. When confronted with disappointment, betrayal, or conflict, a man with emotional awareness processes the experience, learns from it, and moves forward without bitterness or unnecessary drama. Women observe this resilience and maturity, often in subtle, unspoken ways. They see that he does not chase validation, does not cling to attachment, and does not compromise his principles for temporary comfort. Instead, he acts with clarity, empathy, and purpose, creating a presence that is both strong and gentle, a combination that commands deep respect. Emotional intelligence is the foundation of a man's inner strength. It allows him to act with dignity, respond with wisdom, and leave a lasting impact through behavior rather than words. Women notice not the display of power, but the depth of understanding, the calmness under pressure, and the unwavering commitment to self-respect. In every interaction, it is this awareness, this mastery over emotions that defines true strength and creates a lasting impression that cannot be forgotten. Boundaries and respect are the pillars of a man's true character, the silent language through which strength and self-worth are communicated. A man who knows how to establish boundaries does not do so out of arrogance or fear of connection. He does so out of clarity about who he is, what he values, and what he will and will not tolerate. These boundaries are not walls meant to isolate, but lines drawn to protect his peace, his dignity, and his emotional energy. Women sense this immediately, not through words, but through the way he interacts, the way he responds, and the way he refuses to compromise his integrity for the approval or control of others. When a man enforces his boundaries calmly and consistently, he demonstrates respect for himself and expects the same in return. He understands that respect is earned through behavior, not demanded through confrontation or dominance. Walking away when a situation undermines his values is not a sign of weakness. It is the ultimate expression of self-respect. It communicates that he does not chase, plead, or compromise for temporary comfort or validation. Women notice this distinction instinctively. They see that his calmness is rooted not in detachment, but in self-awareness and a refusal to settle for less than what aligns with his principles. Boundaries also teach others how to treat him. A man who clearly knows his limits communicates that manipulation, disrespect, or emotional games will not work on him. This clarity does not alienate. Rather, it commands respect and inspires admiration. Women are drawn to men who have this balance because it provides safety, stability, and predictability in a world often filled with chaos and uncertainty. They feel that a man who honors himself is capable of honoring others, and that his relationships are built on understanding and mutual respect rather than compromise, control, or desperation. Respect is closely tied to consistency. A man who enforces boundaries inconsistently risks confusion, resentment, or emotional instability. Emotional intelligence and self-awareness are crucial in ensuring that boundaries are not reactive or punitive, but conscious and intentional. When he acts from this place, he demonstrates integrity, discipline, and authenticity. Women are not only attracted to this behavior, they are impressed by it, intrigued by the calm authority it projects, and often inspired to reflect on their own standards and values in response. Boundaries and respect also shape a man's interactions with the world at large. He does not bend under pressure, compromise under expectation, or settle out of fear of being alone. He understands that true connection comes from mutual alignment, not coercion or fear. By respecting himself first, he establishes a template for how others can engage with him. Women notice this because it transcends superficial behavior. It is rooted in character, not performance. It communicates that he is someone who values depth over drama, substance over superficiality, and authenticity over pretense. Boundaries and respect are not about control. They are about self-preservation, clarity, and dignity. They reflect a man who understands his own worth and refuses to compromise it. Women recognize this presence because it is rare, profound, and magnetic. A man who embodies these qualities does not need to explain, argue, or prove himself. His actions, choices, and calm assertion of self-respect communicate everything. It is this mastery of boundaries and unwavering demand for respect that leaves a lasting impression, creating admiration and recognition that words alone could never achieve. The magnetism of detachment is a force few truly understand, yet it is one of the most powerful qualities a man can possess. Detachment is not about indifference, coldness, or lack of care. It is about maintaining clarity, freedom, and self-possession in the face of attachment, expectation, and emotional turbulence. A man who embodies detachment does not chase, beg, or plead. He moves through life with purpose, grounded in his values, and fully aware that his peace is his most valuable possession. Women notice this magnetism intuitively, drawn not to the absence of emotion, but to the strength and confidence that underlies it. Detachment allows a man to engage with the world without being consumed by it. He loves deeply, invests genuinely, and cares sincerely, but he does not lose himself in the process. He does not tie his happiness or self-worth to someone else's approval, presence, or response. This creates a quiet allure that cannot be replicated by desperation or clinginess. Women are often captivated by men who exude this sense of freedom because it signals emotional maturity, inner strength, and the ability to navigate relationships without being controlled by them. When a man practices detachment, he demonstrates that his life is guided by intention rather than impulse. He chooses when to stay and when to walk away, when to engage and when to observe, all while maintaining a steady sense of self. This conscious distance does not push people away. It teaches them about value, respect, and the consequences of taking someone for granted. Women notice that his calm independence is not a threat, but a mirror that reflects their own choices, intentions, and respect for boundaries. It sparks curiosity and admiration because it communicates that he is not easily swayed, manipulated, or diminished. Detachment also strengthens the quality of connection. When a man is not attached to outcomes, he brings presence, authenticity, and mindfulness into his relationships. He does not overreact to misunderstandings, obsess over responses, or attempt to control circumstances. Instead, he navigates interactions with composure, clarity, and a sense of security. Women sense the difference immediately. They feel the calm, grounded energy that comes from a man who values himself first and approaches relationships from a place of strength rather than neediness. This energy is magnetic, compelling, and unforgettable. Detachment is an act of self-respect in its purest form. It communicates that he values his time, energy, and emotions more than temporary approval or fleeting validation. Walking away calmly from situations that do not serve growth, harmony, or respect is not a loss. It is a demonstration of courage, dignity, and self-possession. Women are drawn to this because it represents authenticity and integrity. They recognize that a man who detaches wisely is someone who cannot be controlled, bought, or diminished by circumstances. And this awareness creates a deep, lasting respect. The magnetism of detachment lies in the quiet confidence it projects. It is a reminder that true strength is not found in attachment or dependency, but in the freedom to be oneself fully without compromise or desperation. A man who masters this creates a presence that is both magnetic and unforgettable. Women notice it, respect it, and often feel a deep instinctive admiration that lasts long after the moment has passed. It is a power rooted in calm, clarity, and the unwavering belief in one's own value. Absence is one of the most powerful teachers in human relationships. It reveals truths that presence often hides and clarifies emotions that words fail to explain. When a man chooses to step away calmly, without drama or emotional outbursts, his absence becomes louder than any argument he could have made. Women begin to feel the difference not immediately, but gradually, through the silence, the space, and the sudden realization of what is no longer there. This absence is not punishment or manipulation. It is a natural consequence of self-respect and clarity. A man's absence highlights the value he once brought into a woman's life. It exposes the comfort of his consistency, the stability of his presence, and the calm he contributed to the dynamic. When he is no longer there to explain himself, reassure, or adjust endlessly, space invites reflection. Women begin to recognize what was taken for granted and what was overlooked. The lesson does not come from his words or demands, but from the quiet contrast between presence and absence. It is in this contrast that respect often deepens. Absence also removes emotional noise. Without constant communication or reactive exchanges, clarity emerges. A woman begins to reflect on interactions without defensiveness or resistance. She notices patterns, choices, and behaviors with greater honesty. A man who leaves calmly allows this process to unfold naturally. He does not force understanding. He trusts that truth reveals itself over time. This patience communicates strength and maturity, showing that he does not need immediate validation or acknowledgement to feel secure in his decision. The lesson through absence is also deeply tied to dignity. A man who walks away without resentment preserves his self-worth and leaves behind an impression rooted in respect. Women sense the difference between someone who disappears out of anger and someone who steps away with composure. The latter creates curiosity rather than relief, reflection rather than resentment. His absence carries weight because it is intentional, not reactive. It signals that he valued himself enough to leave a situation that no longer aligned with his values. Absence teaches boundaries in a way that presence never can. When a man is no longer available to tolerate disrespect, inconsistency, or emotional imbalance, the lesson becomes clear without confrontation. Women often recognize that access to a man like this is not guaranteed. It is earned through mutual respect, effort, and understanding. His absence becomes a mirror, reflecting what was offered and what was lost. The lesson through absence is not about regret or longing. It is about awareness. It teaches the value of presence by removing it, and it communicates self-worth without explanation. A man who understands this does not fear stepping away. He trusts that his absence will speak honestly, clearly, and powerfully. Women notice this strength because it is rooted in calm self-respect, not ego. And long after he is gone, the lesson remains quiet, undeniable, and deeply impactful. A lasting impression is not created through intensity, arguments, or dramatic exits. It is formed through composure, consistency, and quiet self-respect. A man who leaves calmly imprints himself far deeper in a woman's memory than one who reacts emotionally or fights to be understood. His restraint becomes unforgettable because it defies expectation. Where chaos is anticipated, he offers calm. Where anger is assumed, he chooses dignity. This contrast lingers long after the moment has passed, shaping how he is remembered and respected. When a man maintains grace in emotionally charged situations, it signals depth of character. Women may forget harsh words spoken in anger, but they rarely forget the man who remained grounded when emotions were high. His calm presence, even in departure, becomes a reference point, a standard against which future experiences are compared. The impression he leaves is not about what he said, but about how he carried himself. It reflects confidence rooted in self-worth rather than ego, strength rooted in control rather than dominance. A lasting impression is also shaped by emotional maturity. A man who walks away without blame, accusations, or emotional manipulation demonstrates that he understands the difference between attachment and self-respect. Women sense that he is not trying to punish or provoke a reaction. Instead, he is choosing alignment with his values. This clarity creates admiration because it shows that he does not need validation to feel secure. His actions communicate finality without bitterness, strength without cruelty, and confidence without arrogance. Time often magnifies the impact of such behavior. In reflection, women begin to recognize the emotional safety and stability he offered. They recall his consistency, his calm responses, and the way he respected himself without diminishing others. The memory of his presence grows stronger in absence, not because of regret, but because of contrast. Few men leave without chaos, and that rarity makes his composure memorable. It becomes a quiet reminder of what emotional strength truly looks like. A man who leaves calmly also preserves his narrative. He is remembered as someone who knew when to step back, someone who did not compromise his dignity for temporary comfort. This self-control leaves behind a sense of curiosity rather than closure. Women often replay interactions with him, not searching for mistakes, but trying to understand the depth behind his silence and restraint. His calm exit leaves questions unanswered, and those unanswered questions deepen the impression he leaves behind. A lasting impression is built on how a man honors himself. It is shaped by his ability to remain composed, respectful, and grounded even in moments of emotional difficulty. Women notice this because it reflects authenticity and inner strength. His calm departure becomes a signature of his character, a reminder that true power does not announce itself loudly. It is felt quietly, remembered deeply, and respected long after the moment has ended. In the end, a man who leaves calmly leaves behind far more than silence. He leaves clarity, respect, and a powerful reflection of self-worth. His composure speaks where words fall short, teaching lessons through absence, boundaries, and emotional intelligence. Women remember not the departure, but the dignity within it. Calmness becomes his legacy, revealing that true strength is quiet, self-respecting, and unforgettable.